I am actually waiting outside Courthouse where my media request has been denied. And so I thought I would use this opportunity to just do a live chat about what it means for judges to lock us out of public court proceedings, because this is really starting to make me mad. I think we can all agree that cameras need to be in these courtrooms. So the hearing that we're waiting for is going on inside that courthouse right over there, which is the civil courthouse in Santa Clara County. And this is the older civil courthouse right here. It's a really pretty old building. And the courthouse right over there is the family courthouse, and the criminal courthouse is down the block. So thank you, Louis Berry. I did have a very nice Easter. It was very nice up in San Francisco where I was for the day, and I appreciate the thoughts. It was nice to finally have some spring and some nice weather here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start talking about what's going on inside that courthouse, and about my media requests, and about the judge. The judge's name is Judge Eric Geffon. And for those of you who watch my channel, you probably know about Chille DeCastro. And I have been watching not only the proceedings that have gone on in his cases recently, but I've also been watching all of the social media noise. And so I thought, while I'm waiting for this hearing and going to tell you about why it's so similar to Chille's, that we could talk about the Chille case and what I saw and what I'm hoping all of you saw. So the first thing is that when Chille was in that courtroom, the judge immediately singled him and his attorney out to take their cell phones. And they took their cell phones in a way that felt selective and biased. The judge was making a presumption that Chille was doing something that he wasn't doing, and that was clearly based on her having watched his channel or heard about it. And one of the things that happened in that case that struck me was people started to comment that she was married to a police officer. And I didn't know that, and I didn't hear that, but that would make a lot of sense for why we saw what we saw at that hearing. And what happened at that hearing was the judge started off biased. And when you're court watching, it's really hard to watch for bias, because judges are allowed to do a lot of things. But one of the things they're not allowed to do is they're not allowed to act in a case where they have a social, professional, or financial conflict of interest. And if they do, then what ends up happening is they will taint the proceedings. And the public will perceive that something isn't fair, but they won't necessarily know why. And so when I saw her immediately go for his cell phone, make him open up his jacket, that bothered me. That looked like bias to me. And I have watched a lot of court hearings, and bias isn't always easy to tell with a judge. You can't tell their financial conflicts of interest. And so she started off with asking for the cell phone. Now, Judge Geffon, who's hearing this case that I'm out here watching from the outside of the courthouse because he denied my media request, was the criminal judge assigned in my case, where I was prosecuted for 6 years for recording the police officer who broke my hand. And that was the case that I learned how to tell that a judge was biased. He had actual financial conflicts of interest, and he had conflicts of interest that I didn't discover until after he had been in my case for years. But he is a former criminal defense attorney, and I happen to have several sources that had hired him as a criminal defense attorney, and he was really, 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 thanks, Mushroom Manny. I absolutely always adore when you're here, and I always appreciate that you're here. And I really appreciate your support. But Judge Geffon, in that case, the district attorney had subpoenaed my emails. And I was arrested in 2017, a month after they broke my hand in the court file room. And the charges were for violating a local court rule that had been passed by judges and lawyers, and it wasn't even properly done because I did a records request and found that. And also it was for resisting arrest and interfering with a police officer doing their job, which are the same charges that Chille is now serving 6 months in jail for. And no matter what you think about Chille, and I have my personal opinions, I don't audit or do my work the way Chille does. I don't believe that we talk to any people, even though you have a First Amendment right to talk to people using foul language and really personally attacking them. I don't think that that serves the purpose for my reporting purposes, and I would never do that. And I certainly would never do that in a courtroom. And I think that when Judge Zimmerman started off that case, that she appeared biased when she did this whole cell phone thing from Chille. And as she did it, I don't know if you noticed, but she commented that she had granted 2 media requests. And that's what I'm dealing with right here in California. We don't have cameras in courtrooms, and the judges never grant my media requests. Now, Judge Geffon granted one of my media requests one time. And if you look through my old videos, you'll see him sitting in the courtroom. I've done a couple of videos with that video that I was allowed to take by court order. And that was a video where the court had sent out a media request telling all members of the press, and I'm on their press list, that there was going to be a special hearing about the Prop 84 expungement hearings. And Prop 84 was the law that California voters passed that said no more marijuana convictions. We have legalized marijuana, and so anybody who has marijuana related crimes, we're going to expunge all those from their criminal records. And just like Chille is now in jail for really recording the police and for behavior that the government doesn't like, there are a lot of people that have been in jail for years for having, smoking, consuming marijuana that used to be considered very, it was something that the government really looked down on. And if you go into a court proceeding even now or talk to police officers, they will be completely fine with alcohol, but they won't necessarily be fine with people who use marijuana. And that is an inherent bias that police have on the streets, even though the laws have changed. And I've even seen judges in family law cases really judging parents who use marijuana and not the same as they judge parents who drink alcohol. So, and a lot of these attorneys and judges are really bad alcoholics. They have serious problems with alcohol. So we've got to remember that police, judges, and lawyers are all just very similar to everybody else in society. They drink, they fight with their spouses, they make mistakes, they break the law when they speed to work every day. I'm just going to keep walking around while this hearing's going on. So when I watched the hearing for Chille, the cell phone thing really irritated me in the beginning. And then after that, what happened was, if you watch the old videos, the way that you court watch a judge, and a lot of people, when they watch a hearing, they're watching Chille, and you see the people who are anti-Chille, engaged in what we call, and I saw someone make a comment about that today, Schadenfreude, which is, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's a German word, which means taking pleasure in somebody else's misfortune. And so no matter how much you like or dislike Chille, watching what happened to him in that courtroom and how completely stunned he was that he was being arrested. The prosecutor didn't ask for him to be arrested. She asked for a $500 fine, a class, an impulse class or some BS like that. And she asked for probation and suspended sentence. And the judge completely ignored that. And the judge has the discretion to be able to do that. Thank you for the gas money. I actually really, really appreciate that. So, Chille is teaching us a lesson that the First Amendment is not free. Because when a judge or a police officer has the discretion to be able to take your freedom from you, take your property from you, take your children from you, then we aren't free. Thank you so much, Joe Schmo. I really, really appreciate it. And you have no idea how much $5, $10, $15, $20 helps more than you know. Because as you guys know, we aren't making a lot of money doing what we're doing. And if we don't do it, I don't know who's going to. So I appreciate everybody in the auditing community. We all have opinions about everybody, but I think we're going for the same purpose, and that's transparency on police. And for me, it's really transparency in these courtrooms. So very similar to how the Chille faced a very biased judge. I have seen that happen more times than you know, especially in family court, where the judge, there's no jury, and I want to talk about that for a minute too, because a lot of you didn't realize, but Chille had a criminal proceeding with no jury present, and that really startled me. Because in criminal cases, we can at least balance out a biased judge with the ability to have a jury sit and make the ultimate decision. Now, there's a lot of things that happen before you ever get to a jury. Pretrial motions, what evidence can go into play, and that kind of thing. And that happened with Chille, only there was never going to be a jury. So that judge got to not only decide to convict him, but they also got to decide that what was going to happen to him as far as spending time in jail. And so we saw that judge act with bias, put him in jail, and here's how you tell the bias. First of all, asking about the cell phone and strip searching him basically inside the courtroom that they didn't do to anybody else. They only did it to Chille. And I saw the lawyer, and I can't remember his name, but he did a little live stream this morning. He's the personal injury attorney that came up to Chille's hearing yesterday and tried to get into the courtroom, and they wouldn't let him in the courtroom. And that is what we're seeing over and over again, is that the judges, while we've paid for cameras to have cameras in courtrooms, they are restricting the use of those or not using them at all. And they're using Microsoft Teams and Zoom to broadcast. Some people are using YouTube, and they're broadcasting all of those. And when they broadcast those proceedings, it goes into the public domain. I mean, we can all see it. So to try to control when that happens and doesn't happen, it's kind of like letting the judge have their finger on the switch. And depending on how judges feel about transparency, they're going to not approve us coming in remotely where you could have some anonymity. And so
See, approach us right away.
I'm listening to people here. So those were the initial things that I saw with the bias. If she was truly married to a police officer, then Chille and all of his work is offensive to her family. That is who she chooses to associate with. She probably goes to police association meetings. He probably goes to judge association meetings, and that is their family. And when you attack a police officer verbally, and not even always justifiably, but when you attack them personally and they're doing their job, you have to remember that's somebody's son, that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's family member, and their family members are going to defend them just like people in the First Amendment auditing community defend each other. And yeah, we should talk about Eric Brandt too, because all of these people who are doing jail time and who are really pushing the envelope on transparency on police, those people are important. And there will be a lot of people who pay a big price to when we get up to a position very similar to where we've gotten with legalization of marijuana. And it takes a lot of everybody coming around to be the majority vote. And so right now we're really split in a country. We're, as somebody was talking today about Chille, he has 50% of the people supporting him because they see what the government can do, and 50% of the people are the government. These are all these accounts. Talk with Mike, I think, is the YouTube channel. I have to tell you, I really don't like that attorney. I've watched a lot of his things. I've watched how he reports on the courts. He attacks individuals who are in family law cases who can't afford an attorney. And I think that is bad form for any attorney to be doing. And it's punching down is what it is, especially an attorney making fun of somebody who can't afford an attorney. And we saw with Chille's case, the difference. Mike Mee, by the way, I did email him and asked him. I wrote a story in the Davis Vanguard. If you Google that, you can see that. I emailed him. I emailed the prosecutor in advance of writing that story because that's what journalists do. And Mike didn't answer me. And if you are representing, this is for every attorney that is out there, if you are ever representing a journalist, a cop watcher, a First Amendment auditor, or any of us that are part of really the free press, then you better be willing to go to the mat for those people, and talking to the press is more important than ever. So I was a little disappointed that Mike Mee wouldn't speak to me after Chille's first hearing. And now he has another lawyer, but I understand he isn't even answering people. So when you're a lawyer for somebody like us, and my lawyers have learned this the hard way. I have lots of lawyers who have had to work for me for free because I don't have the money to pay them. And they know, they tell me all the time, Susan, stop doing what you're doing. It creates more work for us. But I'm not going to stop. I think that we need cameras in these courtrooms. We need eyes on police officers. We need to be able to walk into a courtroom or go in remotely to a courtroom. Look, there's a group of kids over there. They're educating about our courts. The government shouldn't have a one-way directive on how to educate our children and the public about how the courts operate. We need journalists covering these court proceedings. We need members of the public being able to get in remotely. Let's go over the states that allow remote access. Michigan, I watch a judge in Michigan all the time. He doesn't have a jury in his courtroom ever, and he does unlawful detainers. He also does misdemeanors, which I don't think I've ever seen it. Actually, I have heard him refer to a jury. I haven't seen one of those videos. But he's in a little historic courthouse in Michigan, and he live streams every single one of his videos, his court proceedings, every single day. And people are getting thrown out of their houses. They're having a lot of disputes and different things. And that judge is the best judge I have ever seen in the country. He doesn't mind being recorded. He gives shouts out to the people who are appearing in his live stream. He is kind, he is patient, he settles things, and that's what a judge should be doing. A judge needs to realize they work for the public, and that's what they should be doing. So I am, whoever said Leto Law, yes, I love Leto Law. If somebody, who just wrote that? Unqualified immunity, you just wrote something about Leto Law. Did he cover that Michigan judge and him live streaming? Because I think that's really, really important. That we need to make sure that judges understand that they are employed by the public, but their greatest duty in exchange for the immunity, the power, and everything else they're given, their greatest responsibility is maintaining public trust in our courts. And when you deny media requests, that means the rare opportunity time when somebody from the media actually wants to watch a court proceeding. Why would you make it harder on us? Why would you make us have to drive all the way down here and park and go into the court proceeding, not let us record, make us have to take our notes by hand, when you could just live stream it and everybody could see what we're talking about? We all are talking about Chille because there were 2 media requests granted in that case. The bias of the judge was her selectively deciding who was going to record those proceedings, who was going to come into those proceedings, and who is not. And that is my issue with Judge Zimmerman. That's what she did from the get-go. She inflamed the situation by taking Chille's cell phone, by insinuating that his attorney's cell phone should be taken. And if you watch the video, that actually happened. She literally took his cell phone, made him turn it in, then the pig incident happened, and she also said, and you have to turn in your cell phone to his attorney. And Chille even said, you're going to take my attorney's cell phone? And she said, no, he's an officer of the court. Well, he was an officer of the court the first time she told him to take it. So it set the hearing off on a very bad note. And the outcome is, hi Leslie, good to see you in here. I'm glad you're on board. And the outcome of that proceeding was an important one because when a judge starts off with bias, they start off with disclosures that they're not making, then the outcome of those proceedings are going to be bad. So now let me tell you about what's going on inside this courthouse. This is Judge Geffon, and he is the judge that I've watched for years because he was my criminal court judge when no other judge would take the case because it was so ridiculous and because they knew it would be ridiculous. And it was completely political because of my cover. Sorry, that got interrupted by a phone call. So when a judge doesn't make their disclosures, Judge Zimmerman didn't disclose she's married to a cop, which tells us a lot about her mindset. When a judge acts with bias when the hearing begins, meaning taking the cell phone but granting media requests to the certain media that she favored or approved of while denying and restricting the media that she doesn't like, that's bias. And my issues with Judge Zimmerman are those two things, that she started out with bias and not disclosing, and that's what gives the whole appearance. Everything from there goes downhill once you're biased and you don't admit it. So Judge Geffon is presiding over this case right inside that courthouse in Department 8. He has denied my 2 media requests. My first one was pretty please, may I record inside the courthouse, inside the courtroom, both remotely and also inside the courtroom. I was going to put 2 people in, one remotely recording it and one inside the courtroom. Judge said no. And the reason he said no is he said that there wasn't going to be anybody appearing remotely. Well, I don't know how he knew that because it was 5 days before the hearing. And so then somebody said they were going to be appearing remotely, and he still denied my media request when I submitted it again. So the problem with Judge Geffon is, like Judge Zimmerman, he has conflicts of interest that he has not disclosed to the parties in the case. And the conflicts of interest, if you look back through my videos, when I discovered the Bar Bench Media Police Committee, the little side has let's go watch the Brinks truck getting the money. I always love to watch them come into the courthouse to get the money. We're live streaming this, so that'll be fun for you guys. When you guys started telling me that the courts were businesses, I thought, what? And now I love watching the Brinks guy come in and pick up the deposits. So Judge Geffon is hearing a case right now involving a San Jose City Council member who filed a civil harassment case against a little Instagram journalist. He's on Instagram and his name is Eastside San Jose Times. And he, films police activity. He's very nice to the police. He doesn't film it in a way that is obtrusive or offensive. He does use bad language more than I would on my Instagram channel. But he is very authentic. He's an ex-radio host. And so he has this channel with now almost 90,000 followers. And so here we go. We're gonna watch Brinks getting the money from the courthouse. This was back in my day, man. The Brinks trucks were, when there were robberies of Brinks trucks, we were all outraged and everybody watched that. Now they just pull up and take the money out of the courthouse. Maybe they don't have any money to get today. So I'm live streaming right now. So let me just tell, so I just got a message that Judge Geffon was asked to recuse from this case because of his conflicts of interest, and we were waiting to see what he would do. And we found out that he is continuing the case till April 16th. So that means he's at least thinking about his conflicts of interest. And so I'm going to be writing about it. We're going to be talking about it. And all of you sitting here talking about it with me compared to Judge Zimmerman was more important than you know. So I will come back and talk to you about that a little bit more. We're going to draw the parallels between what happened to Chille DeCastro and what happens to everybody else in court when the media is not watching. Okay? Thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming in. Thanks for everything else. I'm glad you guys all got to see each other. We have, what do we have? 179 people came in. I appreciate the $20. That's my gas money down here. And I'll be back with more videos later after I finish this next article. Thanks, guys.